Welcome to Until There's a Cure's Empowering Voices series. My name is Lauren, and today I'm joined with special guest Ray Del Barrio. Thank you so much for being a part of this, Ray. And
Thank you very
let's
much.
let's dive right in. Would you be able to tell us a little bit about your work?
Sure. Um, I am a director, producer, educator. I've had a full dance career, working in movies, commercials, television, Broadway, and when I am not actually gigging, working, I'm involved in education. I teach, and I have a great passion for arts education. So, making sure that the work that I'm asking students to perform correlates with some kind of education or counterintuitive information. So we get clear about why the conversations need to happen. Why do we really have theater, and why are these stories told? So I'm pretty much anything that has to do with art, education, and furthering conversations that can help, I
Really
guess,
amazing.
humanity.
Can I ask what age group you usually work with?
I have worked with all ages, primarily when I'm teaching. I'm in junior high, high school, performing arts academies, as well as collegiate.
It's amazing.
Yes,
What's
it's a lot of fun.
what's something that you always really try to teach your students, if you don't mind me asking?
I think that I think that the as teachers, we ask students in the arts, or even people who are studying literature, the whole idea is to like be able to extrapolate information and apply it to today. In school they'll teach you algebra and certain mathematical things in order to try and solidify critical thinking. And so in the arts, I try to fold in, let's talk about why this character is having this experience, or what does this character want out of the situation. Now, as actors, we we research, we do the homework, we want to understand, we want to bring emotions, we want to make it real, we want to be in the moment. I take it a little bit deeper. I'm interested in also if you're going to be able to bring emotions to a particular subject, that you also know what that subject is like in real life and who is affected by it, and if in fact your performance makes some kind of emotional difference or impact on their life, would you be able to have a conversation with them after the show, or whatnot? And there's a slew of theatrical productions that have social content: mental illness, drug use, HIV and AIDS, abuse, alcoholism. These seem to be the musicals that your generation has received, and so uh, it's important, I think, that at least for me, that I impart the information that there's a reason why the stories need to be told, and there's a reason why they continue to be told until we get the information and change it, basically change the narrative.
It's amazing that you really work to incorporate these important conversations into everything that you do. Um, can I ask? I know you specifically mentioned HIV and AIDS. Um, has that been a very big part in what you've been doing?
It's always a part in show business. We're always raising funds. I worked a lot raising funds for Broadway Cares Equity Fights AIDS, so that's a big component. When I'm working in Hawaii, I've worked to uh, raise funds and awareness for the Life Foundation, which is now has a different name, a different heading. Here in Palm Desert, there's Desert AIDS Project, which is rebranding because the that pandemic has changed. It's the medicines are better. There's a different experience. I'm old enough to have been part of the original experience, but I was not in I was not that old that that it was my life. It was a generation that was ahead of me. So I saw the tail end. I saw the movies. We saw Philadelphia. We saw the other films that lightly touched on it. And so Broadway Cares, Equity Fights AIDS. They provide financial assistance, I think, in over 300 uh, uh, service organizations across the country, and there's so many different levels. There's the Actors Fund. So in show business, we participate in all of it constantly because it's not over, and once again, there's there's a need. So it's basically always been a part of my career and my life.
Amazing. And can I ask, is that something that everybody that you interact with uh, in your show business really works towards that, or is that something you try to encourage other people to do?
I guess I don't. I would say that a lot of people are involved. I have a different connection to it. I don't have kids. I didn't have kids. Um, I feel that if I'm going to work with young people, I say kids, but when I if I'm going to work with young people and they're going to take away something, if you're going to be in my class, I would never want it to be that you didn't get the right information. So I kind of feel a little bit of a paternal responsibility when I'm in that forum, which I don't know is everybody's. I mean, some I have been in teaching situations where the actual institutions are like, yeah, don't really get into that. If there's some problems, send them to the counselor. We just get something believable out of them, and let's keep it moving. And I'm not usually comfortable with that. So I'm usually the one who's like, I'm going to push the envelope a little bit. You might not like where I'm going, but I'm going to address it. So nobody can say on my watch that I didn't disseminate the information. And it's happened I mean, I've taught in amazing institutions and summer camps, theatrical camps, where the age range is anywhere from 8 to 18. And adults are very interesting, and they don't really seem to make the correlation with, why does it keep happening? And it's like, well, I know I grew up watching Bugs Bunny, in drag, being shot with a gun from Elmer Fudd, or like, there's this comedic kind of like take on what we grew up on, and even what you guys grew up on. Evil witches, mistreating girls and locking them up in towers so men could rescue them and kiss them, or even Bambi's mom being shot. Like, why? What part of entertainment? Even Lion King. I'm sorry, Lion King was very offensive to me. Like, people be like, "What Lion King? What a great, the song, Elton John's song and stuff." I'm like, the humans basically took, the perfect animals who don't operate in jealousy and deceit and all of these human conditions, and you made these beautiful animals behave like humans poorly too. Like there's the
Yeah.
British uncle who kills his, I don't know, his American counterpart brother, and then the little boy Simba grows up insecure until the clouds open up, and then they have to go and kill the hyenas. It Animals don't behave that way, and nobody in the adult world seems to be saying, "Oh, well, maybe kids use guns easily or want them because they see that it's a toy. We gave you a gun as a kid. There's cops and robbers, cowboys and Indians, even in the arts, the Nutcracker. There's the little girls get a baby, and the boys are mean and pull their pigtails. First of all, why do girls have to have a baby? Like, why is that the natural programming, and why is the programming that boys are going to misbehave? And then we wonder why you know men are abusive and women are abused, and we have these boxes, and the adults just don't, they're not paying attention.
Yeah.
They're not paying attention to the morals of the stories and why it keeps repeating. And so I don't know, maybe that's just my point of view, but if I had to sit back and tell somebody who wasn't from this planet, what do you think the biggest problem is? It's like, well, we're programming ourselves to behave this way without even paying attention. Like entertainment on television at nighttime is all murders and rapes and these awful stories, and it's like CSI and like all of this like entertainment. There's no entertainment other than comedy. There's no entertainment that doesn't have some kind of awful atrocity attached to it. And I don't know if you see that. I mean, can you see
Yeah.
that?
I definitely do. Yeah.
And the adults are like, well, don't talk about it because it'll make the kids do it. And it's like, no, the kids, they see it. You
Yeah.
showed it to them.
Kind of
You
learn from
put them in front of
example.
the TV. Yeah. So, it's kind of, for me, I'm just acutely aware of it. And so I try to do my best to speak this way, at least in front of my students and in front of my classes, to say, look, if you want it to end, you need to understand why it exists and how to stop it and how it got there. And like that is critical thinking, not necessarily the numbers and the slashes. And I was awful in math too, so I was like, there's no way that's gonna, you know, thinking and having a conversation and facts, as you see what's happening in our country and in the world. Facts, they're not selective.
Yeah.
Science is not selective. It's real. So we're still kind of stuck in that I think in a very strange place still, where the adults who are my look, I'm not young, I'm not old, but at 58, it's like I can see it. And if I had kids who were going to school, or if I had, like, I would feel a tremendous, I would want to homeschool my kids.
Yeah.
I would want to really pick and choose. Now, I was bullied as a kid. I was in entertainment. I was dancing, singing. I was called like the kids are kids, but that conversation is still happening. But now it's more volatile. People are cutting themselves, or they're injured, or they're committing suicide, or they're shooting each other. Like none of that, none of that really existed back when I was younger, and so it's only progressed. And so I just feel like if we're going to be entertainers, and I'm going to, bring a believable performance to, let's say, in Rent, well, then you need to know. Or one of my students wanted to play Lola in a presentation, and I said, well, you can be Lola, and you can choreograph it and direct you, and you can walk around in heels, but you need to tell me how many people died of AIDS. You need to tell me everything that happened from Stonewall, Marsha P. Johnson, like everything that happened about the LGBT community,
Yeah.
before you get to stand up and basically stand on the shoulders of everybody else. And I believe that it'll make your Lola even richer. Like that's my offering to you, that if you do the work, when you step into the role, you own it because you understand it.
Have you seen these conversations over the years change with your students and just the people around you?
They have. I mean, things have become more. Students have more more to say. There's also, new rules and new all these other things. Especially in terms of protecting us and protecting students, not being alone in a room ever with a student. Like there's new parameters, but I would have to say that, I mean, still in my latest, no less than like a year and a half ago, I was teaching at an accredited performing arts college, And here I had extraordinary students who wanted to handle extraordinary roles, and it seemingly was in every almost every role there was something that was real. And so as I started digging a little deeper with the actors and saying things like, if you're going to do that, or if you're going to do something from Wild Party, then you need to understand about gun use, abuse, rape, drug use. Like, no. So what if someone comes up after and says, I was thinking of taking my life, or, and because I saw your performance, it made me like, you need to know. Well, thank you. And I hope that you know that you could always call Trevor Project. Or I hope that you know that you could call Planned Parenthood and get whatever counseling you have. Like, I really feel like it's, the students are more open to it, but the adults are still a little bit like, oh, we're not sure that's going to work. And it's just because they haven't tried it, you know? I mean, they haven't tried it. Why would you ever do a Company of Spring Awakening without having Planned Parenthood involved? Why would you ever do a Company of Rent without having Broadway Cares, Equity Fights AIDS, and drug counselors, and even the conversation, if you want to be an artist, that's great, try to go to college, because you could end up squatting, it, like paying rent and things that you have to do in life could require, no matter how talented you are and how fabulous you are, that you hopefully have a degree that later on in life you could get the most money that you could possibly make because you did the work now. So that's always my conversation. But once again, I think also your generation, and I don't mean this in a things were just are easier. You got a phone, you get a thing, like you have access, easier to see things, easier to experience things that we didn't experience. If you wanted to make a phone call, you put a quarter in there wasn't a constant ability to experience things that maybe no one should experience, you know, uh, as freely. So you have more information, you've seen more, you've experienced more in some ways. And so, even more so, that's why you need to have the information. That's why your generation could be the generation that could change it all. Because look how the adults are behaving now. I mean, look at the people. Look at the people that got into Congress. I mean, look at what's happening. Look at the 4 years of what was. I mean, no one ever thought that could happen and that people behave that way. But I got news for you, kids. The adults are really poorly behaved, and there's a lot of darkness that while they want you to have a magical princess growing up, or a prince, and or the captain of the football team, or all of those kind of those stereotypical things. It's like where the adults have really kind of still dealing with a huge mess that they barely have an understanding of how to get out of. And as artists, we're the ones who put on the show and lights and music, and we sing the song, and then you could sit there and cry and understand. But the conversation after needs to be, how do we change? How do we fix it?
Have you always been drawn to having these conversations since you first started in the arts, or is that something you've kind of grown more passionate about during your time?
I mean, I think so. As a kid, I don't, as a kid in LA auditioning as a Hispanic, Italian, Argentine, Hungarian, Jewish, like there was this whole modge podge, but my last name is very ethnic to non-ethnic people. So Del Barrio, they'd be like, "Oh, of the ghetto." No, it's just a neighborhood. So, and in Los Angeles, being Latin, or Argentina in Los Angeles, most of Los Angeles, in terms of what was in television, movies, and commercials, was a Latin that was more Central American. So a darker Latin, more Mexican, Honduran, what was stereotypically the only Hispanic market that Los Angeles um, was focused on, I didn't fit into. So I did have feelings. I don't know if I had conversations, but I did have feelings about like, wow, I can't get called in on something that's non-Spanish. And when I go into a Spanish audition, the whole room turns and looks like you don't even fit. Now in New York, it's a different kind of Spanish. New York is Puerto Rican and Dominican. So it's a different look and a different flavor. And then, like, as an Argentine, I'm allowed to tango. I mean, that's basically it. I could be a tango dancer or, it. So in show business, there, I've had a lifetime of those. I still do. I mean, I've had a lifetime of those experiences where they're trying to fit you into what their idea of people who represent in our community um, look like. Even to this day, I mean, when I'm back home in Hawaii, where my mom lives, I'll audition for Hawaii 5 or Magnum, and it's always like the drug dealer, the rapist, the murderer, the like. There's always the stories are always the same, and it's always like and so it's just a continual perpetual conversation inner, at least as an actor, where I'm like, wow, I don't even want to do this anymore. I mean, oh, and then I think I could be a Red Lobster chef. I think that's neutral enough, that I can audition and like. So I don't know that I think I've been aware because as a kid in show business, you're aware. You're at 7 years old. Most kids are just. I'm 8 years old, but I was 8 years old trying to book that movie or book that TV series. So, and a lot of my friends were like, my closest friend was Dana Plato. I don't know if you know her. She was a young actress who, out the gate when we were kids, she got a sitcom with Todd Bridges, and so these were kids who grew up in television, and I watched, and I mean, Dana's no longer alive. She accidentally overdosed, but like emotionally, I watched a lot of people who were in my age group get get these particular roles or become recognizable, and then I kind of watched them crash and burn. The earliest was when I was 10 years old, and um, for I was 10 years old, and I was up for the Mickey Mouse Club. This is pre Britney and Justin and all of them. So this is in the 70s, so 1974, and it was me and the other kid. Like it was down to the role, and I sang an up-tempo version of Misty from a chart that my dad did because I grew up in. My dad was in the music industry as well as my uncle. So, and I tap danced, and the other kid did a folklorico dance in all black around the sombrero, and he was dark, and his name was Angel, and Angel got the job. And so on the show, Disney was trying to do that. Like, here's one Spanish, one Asian, one, black, one this, one that. Like, they were trying to do their best version of diversity, which I think they pretty much hit it. Um, but it was interesting to experience that kind of those kind of feelings. And oddly enough, I found out later, not too long ago, maybe like 5 years ago, I was wondering they did a Where Are They Now on E entertain like an E entertainment, like Where Are They Now, and they covered some of the people in that, but Angel wasn't included in that particular show and whatnot. And then I found out about 5 years ago that he had passed away from AIDS. So it's been an interesting journey, and I don't think I don't think I began to really talk about it until I got involved in teaching, because I don't take that lightly. I kind of feel like teachers are unsung heroes, and they certainly don't get paid enough, and parents just drop the kids off and expect us to raise them,
Yeah.
teach them uh, certain things, and then we can also get in trouble for being, too accurate. So it's an odd dynamic, but I've become more passionate about it, considering what's happening in the world.
Um, I'm sorry.
We froze.
I'm actually really
Oh,
curious
I
to
think
know
we
how
froze.
long, sorry?
No,
Oh,
we froze. Did you get me? Okay,
you
because
froze for me
you
too.
froze. Okay.
Um, how long have you been in education as well? How many years?
Well, I've always been teaching dance. So whenever I started dancing, I've always been involved in teaching dance. I mean, um, so the idea of being in front of students and teaching. Now, none of my combinations and dance combinations were too heady, or I didn't ever really get involved in lyrical dancing like you guys have seen on So You Think You Could Dance, where the numbers about someone who has cancer or survived can't like the theatrics and the content of dance um, did not come into play when I started teaching. But I mean, I will say that I've been teaching at least 25 years, 30 years.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Um,
I love it. I love making a difference. I love it when the kids get it, or when the students get it and they're like, oh, wow. It's empowering. It's the whole point of empowering voices, empowering people um, with information.
I mean, it's clear even just speaking to like, I'd be so happy to have a teacher like you. And I mean, the
Oh, it'd be
teachers in my
awesome.
lives are the reason I am who I am today, you know? And I'm sure it's the same for your students. So,
I think so. And I tell them, look, I was like, if you see me in a mall and I'm 80, like, I mean, we're establishing relationships right now that, hopefully everything will go right. But it's also, and in the last 10 years, I've been involved in end of life care. Started with my dad and then other people that I knew that were in their 80s and whatnot. And so end of life care or transitional care or actual hospice palliative and all the way to burial. And it's not a conversation that we have with young people as well. The circle of life is really that as it began, it will end. And it starts with feeding and bathing and diapering. And if it if if the journey happens that way as opposed to an instantaneous transition, it ends with feeding, bathing, diapering. And so these are elements that are not necessarily, oh, the kids, they don't need to know that. It's a long time before, but I think more and more so that it's imperative that we add that part, that component. So you understand that's the compassion. That's the understanding of of giving back and being a part of that circle.
I know this is a little off the topic we were just on, but can I ask, do you think growing up already kind of in show business the way you have has affected the way you live now compared to people who may have gotten into it a little later?
Uh, well, I certainly will say that I mean I'm still in it. I'm still an artist. I just came from like 5 hour dance rehearsal with my dance partner, and I'm here working with an amazing dance academy and dance company, Nickerson Rossi Dance, and they're involved in outreach and working with the Barbara Sinatra Children's Foundation, which works with abused kids and giving them a voice, and so I'm still very much in it, and that I believe that it keeps me young. It keeps me youthful. Although my body, I'm a little tired, from the movement and whatnot. I'm still hopeful. I'm still, most people at my age are like, oh, I did it. My life was good. My kids are did like whatever. And it's like soon in a minute I'm going to retire and it's like it's over. And I'm so far from that. It's not over till it's over. And I mean, um, I think, maybe I had a head start. Maybe my outlook is a little different because I started thinking and paying attention because of show business starting at 7 years old. What 7-year-old kid is like trying to navigate the possible ways your career? I mean, and I was a kid, it was like that freaking Joey Lawrence, was that little kid with the bowl cut. Like we weren't in competition, but it was like that was the job that you wanted to get. And like, and he's amazing. And I say that because it was like, oh my God. I mean, and look at him now. And it's to be paying attention at such a young age and then see somebody else's trajectory that could have very well been mine. You know, it it's I don't know. It's an interesting perspective. Do you understand?
Yeah.
It's kind of like, you it, and at the same time, I'm very thankful that in my life, I didn't have to fall and get up and brush myself off in front of the public, or that nobody was digging through my trash or invading my privacy to figure out, to navigate or to get a story or whatever. I mean, I'm very thankful. There's a big trade-off to my understanding of being famous. I'm not famous, but I definitely have. You see other people who are famous, and all of a sudden, you become kind of public property in some way. So I'm also thankful that I've been able to live my life and navigate difficult things that have happened in my life that were private, that remain private, and so it's interesting. It's been and it still is. I'm still loving it.
Um, sorry. I
No, it's okay.
no, I just sorry, hearing you speak, I'm getting so into it, I'm forgetting what I want to ask you next. Um,
That's okay.
um, I know it's just everything you tell me is so amazing, the impact you make on your students, the crazy cool things you've been doing with the arts. I know you've mentioned earlier how much money you've raised for Broadway Cares, Equity Fighting AIDS, all of that stuff. I mean, is there anything else that you're just, I mean, wanting to do, looking forward to do, anything like that, or is
I mean, I'm looking forward to continuing to dance. I've during this period of COVID, I have a skill set. I'm involved in social media. I have my Twitter, my Instagram, my Facebook, my LinkedIn. Um, I've been helping other people set theirs up. I'm active, so I'm current. I'm not like one of those adults who's like, oh, I don't know how to use it. It's I'm I'm active now. I don't understand algorithms and how to try and get more followers. And TikTok is changing a little bit for me. I watch it and I look at it, and it concerns me a little bit with some of the things that are on there that I didn't really need to see. But I'm excited to keep dancing, keep moving. I mean, in show business, you're always waiting to see if there's a role that someone's going to create that you fit into. I tell people, I said, no one's looking for me because they're not. They're looking for the role how it was written this way, or it's everything is youth is a very big component in show business. So, um, but then famous people. So we're going to put famous people in the roles. Doesn't matter if they're like amazingly talented. A lot of them are, but it's like they're going to sell tickets, and so it's going to be this, and it's going to be that. So in navigating, I mean, I did Jersey Boys. I was in Jersey Boys in Vegas. I did the Guys and Dolls revival on Broadway. I worked with Harold Prince, who's Broadway legend. He gave me my first Broadway show. I'm one of Chita Rivera's men. Whenever she's got something going on, I'm so lucky to get to be one of the guys who works with her, and so I've been very fortunate. I worked with Whitney Houston in 1988. I mean, that was a whole conversation that we could have. I worked with Paula Abdul. So I've traversed all of it. And even though the industry isn't necessarily looking for me. That's not how I operate. So I'm dancing, I'm creating content. I've got a dance house track where I play 5 different characters. So, trying to create something more to show range that, hey, I can do this all the way to this. And even though you haven't seen me yet or you don't know what to do with me, I'm going to continue um, to cultivate my talents and fine tune things. So that's the part that I feel has kept me young. Well, if you give up, you give up. If you never give up,
Yeah.
eventually you get somewhere. You get where you're going. I'm thrilled about being out here in the desert. There are extraordinary people out here. It is the epicenter of everything that was, from Sinatra to all of the greatness of that era, and then the other generation. So I'm just happy to be here doing it all.
Is there anything last that you just want to say to the people watching this video? Any lessons that you teach your students? Any things that you've learned that you just want to put out there?
I mean, without sounding cliche, it would be, follow your dreams, continue, but do the work. Ask the questions. And now with any of the search engines, you can find out the truth about everything. Um, I think the biggest, with all of the transgender conversations, my cousin, who's 25, is the first non-binary actor to play a non-binary role on Star Trek. And so while I watch what they are doing, and they're very talented and accomplished as an artist, but then also to have to navigate the weight of that title and being out in the world,
Mhm.
and GLAD has recognized them and their group. And so I imagine, God, if my life also had the weight of being in the public eye, to carry the conversation. So um, and I'm really proud of them and I commend them, but I don't know that I don't know that I would be able to handle that, or that would have been something that I would have handled at their age. And so I would say that your generation really has the reins, and you really have to, don't be afraid to call out the adults. I mean, you don't really have to do much. You just turn on the, I mean, there, so many of us are acting like complete idiots, and it's like it's even on video, and then it's like you play back the video and they're like, no, I didn't say that. And you're like, look, in the video you said that. And they're like, no, I didn't say it. And it's unbelievable what's happening, right? So be steadfast, ask questions, get up, do something, march, vote. We're still up against it. You women don't have freedom. You don't have rights. There's still people trying to legislate your bodies. The conversation shouldn't just be about pregnancies and terminations. It should be about insemination. It should be about men. We should have a conversation about vasectomies that are reversible. Why is the conversation only what? So you're really, it's your generation that could make the greatest impact, because there's more of you than there are of us, and we're going to be gone in a minute, right? Not too soon, but so I would say, um, keep the conversations going. Don't wait until there's a Vietnam to march. Don't, speak up, legislate, get involved, run for office, make a difference. Keep the conversations going. If you don't want people to get pregnant, then teach about proper behavior and birth control. If you don't want viruses and diseases to continue to happen, teach about how they cannot happen. If you want racism and hatred and all of that to stop, you need to teach the history of all of it. And it's not just one conversation. It's not just BLM, Native Americans who still don't have a voice, and their entire land was stolen from them, and their entire identity. There's Hispanics in cages right now. It's Hispanics who are picking all the fruits and vegetables that you're getting at Trader Joe's. It's not, I mean, we have modern day slavery. We have all of these things, and it's not. So be diligent, fight for it, speak out, get the information. If someone asks you, be ready to know. These are the details, and take a stand, because it really is your planet. And if we're going to survive, or if you're going to survive, um, we need more Gretas. We need more young people who are like, no, absolutely not. If we put our foot down now, it stops here. This is what's happening. You know, you have very young people who are behaving, who are idiotic as senators. Like, it's not unobtainable. You guys can take over, make a difference. You can end HIV and AIDS. You can end all the other STIs. You can end um, the whole conversation about women's rights and reproductive rights. You really have the power to change the world, and that's not just a saying. It really, we need you, and you need to know that. The adults probably won't say that because they'll be like, "Oh, you're not ready to do that." No, take over, make a difference, vote. Right?
Thank you so much again for taking the time to be here and have this
Oh,
conversation
thank
with me.
you.
And here's to hoping
Thank you
that
for
whoever
asking.
sorry, I was just,
Thank you for asking.
yeah, and here's to hoping whoever watches this conversation, it'll spark more of these important conversations that you talked about that really need to be happening, because I really agree with you.
I hope so. And I'm open for more. And, if I could be a part of anything that you all create in terms of the conversation, and I would be more than happy to participate. So I thank you again for taking the time and being interested.
Thank you so much again.
All right. You got it, Lauren.